players. They didn't give up. They worked really hard, and I think under a lot of circumstances, it could be tempting or easy to, to give up. They put in the energy, they put in the work. Unfortunately, the results weren't there. Low light, yeah, I think we all wanted to see more from the team. I think the expectations and kind of where we were and what we ended up with are very different. And just it was just a rough season all across the board. And just wish that we could have done the players better at the end of the day.
It's a little tricky to answer for me because it's only been a couple of weeks. I think I'll answer kind of broadly because I haven't been here for the whole season, but I think it's kind of a boring answer, but I think the lowlights are just the tough spots in some of the games that we've had. I think we all kind of feel that these guys are they're more talented than they've really had the chance to show over the past couple weeks. And anytime you bring in a new player, like Tanner's been terrific for our environment, but they're also switching costs. Like I wish in some ways we had more time for these guys to gel in a bit of a lower pressure situation without playoffs being kind of on the line as soon as Tanner walked in. But that sort of feeds into the highlights in which you guys get to see 3 days of these guys, and behind the scenes, especially like me coming into this org, I get to see these guys like 6 days a week and seeing them outside of scrims, seeing them hang in there, seeing them stay motivated and really on task to try to put out their best every game has been good, and it's been great. Even though coming in late and coming into struggles to get to know these guys individually, get a sense of what their experience has been this year and with CLG and us as an org, and start to think about how we take that and how we evolve as both like a competitive roster and as an organization in the next coming months and years.
Okay, that's it for the pre-submitted questions. We'll open up the floor to live questions. Please raise your hand if you have one. Degon, you can go first.
Hey, friends.
Yeah.
Obviously a little tough, but I watched the content that y'all put out last week. I think it was like, hey, following along with Greg's journey so far into CLG. And it was kind of a lot of what we talked about in our last interview. Like, hey, figuring out what the priorities are. But because you don't have an interview there, you didn't have anyone press on you what they are so far, what you've seen so far. What are some of the priorities that you've made so far in this month of kind of like observing?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one to answer because it's on many different fronts, right? I think sort of to tackle, I imagine this question is sort of LCS first. I think with LCS, for me, it's been number one is just, kind of like we talked about in that other interview, right? It's getting on the ground, it's assessing, it's getting to know. Like I had a chance to meet with these guys one-on-one, including Eugene, and getting, like I just said, getting a sense of what their experience with the org has been, and sort of getting a read for how things run. Like, I think when you're a new person coming into an organization, particularly one that's having challenges, like there are kind of two ways you can do it, right? One's to sort of assess and see what you have, and the other one's to come in and throw your weight around. I think I've kind of gone with the former approach, and so it's been a bit of that learning, and I think it's been a bit of instilling some of the structure that I had at EG, like our cadence, how we're communicating as a staff, sort of on the back end. I think Dion, you and I have talked. Like I'm a gold rated league player. I'm not the guy to sort of fix everything that we're doing in game, but just making some small tweaks to our organizational structure and adding some other meetings are the light things I've done. But I think going into the longer term, and as we start to put eyes on next year, and I think we've been very focused on the closing out the season first, and we haven't really put a ton into what off season looks like, how we structure going forward. But I expect I had a good chance to learn some things from the guys on what their experience has been like and what what our structure has been like at CLG in terms of how we work and support the players and coach the players. Obviously, I have opinions and experiences from EG, and I think as we look forward, we'll sort of take that and figure out, in 2021 and 2022, like what's the best way to handle and coach a roster, and more importantly for us, as we think about the future of our LCS operation, like who do we want to be, and like have a very clear, articulated, and obvious strategy as a league roster and identity as a league roster, and have that be a North Star for us, not just as a team, but also as an organization. Like I think having that helps you in a ton of ways, right? Not just on the Rift. It helps you tell the story about the team. It helps you tell the story about the players, and really leaning into that and figuring out, starting now, in terms of how we're going to do that next year, will hopefully give us something more crystal clear to not only our fans who are very important to us, but also the LCS scene more broadly. Did that answer the question? Sorry, I know I touched on a lot there.
It was an open-ended question. Thanks.
Cool.
Pedro, you can go next.
Hey guys, commiserations on the season. This question goes out to Tafo. You guys fortunately were eliminated from the season, and so I'd like to know, in an overall view of the entire year, with how everything has passed, what is something that you could have done differently to avoid this sort of result?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I'll probably have a better answer once there's been a little bit debrief this season. Kind of feels like when you're in the season, it's just go, go, go. But yeah, I mean, I think a large part is probably just a little bit more adaptability, and when things need to be changed, or there need to be resources or something, advocating even more for it earlier. And I'm really fortunate to have Greg, who understands the league space. So like I think for next year, like having him around, just also as like an advocate for the team, just having his experience at EG is just going to be just such a large help in really, helping the team as we progress through the season, and we see, the good stuff and some of the bad stuff, early on, like in how we adapt quickly. I think it's really hard to go into the beginning of the season and say, this is the structure, this is the staff, this is the players. You have to be able to adapt on the fly. And so just having Greg around, I think it's just going to be a huge help. So I'll probably have like an overall better answer as I debrief and think about it, but I think those are some of the main things.
Declan, you can go.
Yeah, Pedro kind of asked it, but I'll try to frame it in a different way. As we kind of wind down, we're all kind of getting ready to write our postmortems on not only CLG, but kind of the other teams who don't make it to Worlds in the LCS. So I was just wondering, Daniel, from your perspective, what is CLG's story in the 2021 LCS season?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to close on a good book. I'm trying to think of something positive. But to be honest, like, and be really candid here, I don't place any blame on the players. I don't place anything on the staff. But if I were to speak candidly, it was a disappointment. It was a failure. I think when fans look to CLG as a legacy org, you look at the roster we brought in, the expectations that were put on the team, where I think some people put us as a dark horse, to get into Worlds or, get top 6, make a playoff runs. We didn't meet those. And again, I don't blame, anyone. It's just me. Yeah, I just want to just say I'm sorry. I failed. I own it. And I, even though I felt like I tried my best, it wasn't good enough. And yeah, I don't know what other really narrative I really have for this particular season overall.
I think to add in and reframe a little bit. I think Declan, there's a little bit of, I think for us, it's a little bit of a story of unmet potential. You know, I think all these guys have had pretty successful careers and are accomplished as players. And I think you've seen it in a lot of our games, actually. I think the record sometimes, you know, granted, a win is a win, a loss is a loss, but the record belies some like very close situations where we just felt like we're on the cusp of win and we haven't been able to close it out. And granted, like that can sometimes be the difference between a quality team and a team that's sort of struggling to get it. But I think, you know, I think there are many games, you know, even from before when I was here, where we felt like we were right on the edge. And I think, you know, tapping into that last, you know, that final third, that final quarter, or that last team fight, or that last macro call to close out a game, that's eluded us at times. And I think in that respect, you know, it's a bit of a disappointment that we can't, you know, meet our full potential there in performance, like as a squad. You know, I think these guys, you know, they've had stories career, there's talented, they put in the work. You know, this isn't a story of lack of motivation or effort. Same goes for our coaching staff, same goes for Tafo. I mean, this is a year that we've navigated, still kind of coming out of COVID and coming out of facilities. And you know, it's been tricky, especially like from last year to this year. Like we experienced it at EG2, just trying to figure out like, you know, how you run an LCS operation in the middle of a pandemic and how you fully support a team. And for us, like, you know, we couldn't quite get there, but I don't think it was for any lack of spirit or lack of effort from anyone on board. I think, you know, in some ways, I wish I could have gone a little bit sooner to support Tafo and everyone on the ground here and try to connect some of the dots. But you know, I think the only way this season is a true failure is if we don't use it as a learning experience and bounce back from it and take this lump and you know, take it in stride and accept that, you know, it was a disappointing year for our program, but use this experience to drive change, right? And drive the direction that we go in and get full alignment, both internally with the players we bring on and like going back to New York, right? I think this year everyone's been on board, and you know, I think there's occasionally stuff said about like MSG getting involved, but like that hasn't been the case, I can say. But you know, I think speaking to my earlier point that I already said to Digon, like we'll take this as a learning experience. We understand what happened, you know, why we ran some of the issues we ran this year, and have a very solid and clear direction for the program going forward, going into next year. I think it's an opportunity for us to sort of rally up and get pointed in the same direction and do something with our LCS team.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and that wraps up our time for the scrum. Thank you for answering our questions. We appreciate it.
For sure.
Enjoy
Thanks,
the rest of
guys.
your night.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.